Good evening. Welcome to the Bible Hour, day 31, where we ask, what do we learn about Jesus and what do we learn about church as we read through God's Word? 1 hour a night during lockdown, every night. Good evening, Park End admin. Neil on tonight. Some argue he's the best admin. We will continue from Judges chapter 7, verse 21. Hey, good evening, Petit Bois. Good evening, Gelfin. Hope you've both had a good day. Good evening, Diane. Long time no speak. Judges chapter 7, verse 21. Helping in food bank. Helping in food bank. Is that a question? Is that a statement? What do you mean, Petit Bois? Hey, good evening, Chris Henry. So, Chris Henry, just before the others shuffle on in, the orange light is at its very lowest before it switches off. And the white light behind me is at its very lowest before it switches off. You asked if we had a good day helping in food bank. I get it. That is a worthy cause. We're quite into food bank in Park End Church. Judges chapter 7, verse 21, and we will start reading in 2 minutes. Welcome on in to the Bible Hour. And thank you, Chris Henry. Welcome if you're new. Good morning, North Star. Cup of black coffee there for you. Jonty's artwork went up on all forms of Park End social media today. The angel of the Lord, Exodus chapter 3. Yes, I know. I am in Elims in Caerphilly. Little fact for you, Petit Bois. I used to run a carpet and upholstery business in Ystrad Mynach, just up the road from you. Well, hello there, everybody. Chris Williams. And possibly Cara. I had a text late from Cara yesterday. It arrived at 10:10, but it was sent at 9:30 saying something about Bible Hour, that she was here. My phone not working. Good evening, Phil Tamlin. Good evening, Sue Roberts. In 1 minute, we shall continue reading the book of Judges. Hello, Cara. It is day 31. We are past the halfway mark of the initial Read the Bible in 60 Days projection. Sue Roberts, Chris Henry, Mike sends regards. And you are corrected. Maya the dog's paw contributed to today's numerological photograph, making 31 indexes. All right, it is Judges chapter 7. If you want to know about the book of Judges and why things are like they are, basically there's no king among them, except there is, but they're not recognizing him. But a few are. And for more of that stuff, just dig out our upload from yesterday. Owen, your hair looks good. Thank you, Sue. It doesn't up close. I did it myself and thought I was using a 1.5, but was using a 0.5. Hope this morning is child-friendly. John D. listening this morning. Don't fancy explaining answer or polls. Captain Harris of Hyperion is here. I mean, Judges is 18 plus, but children were there listening to it and living through it in the first place. So let's see how we get on. All right, well, I will start today with a big shout out because I had two items. I had 2 items of post today, and I will be revealing them one day at a time, starting with the one that came first. Possibly the best item of post I've ever received. The merchandise of the Bible Hour is starting to pour in. Just check this out. Please note that the colors pretty much match the colors of the display. A lot of effort have gone into this. Eat, sleep, read Bible, repeat. So massive thank you to Chris Henry for that thoughtful, amazing gift that made me and my wife laugh considerably for a considerable amount of time. Please keep sending the merchandise in. It was a highlight of my day today. Love that cup. Of course, if any of you want to donate financially to the Owen Ferrari Fund, I can put my bank details up at the end. All right, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Judges chapter 7, verse 21. Each man stood at his position around the camp and watched as all the Midianites rushed around in panic, shouting as they ran to escape. When the 300 Israelites blew their ram's horns, the Lord caused the warriors in the camp to fight against each other with their swords. Those who were not killed fled to places as far away as Beth Shittah near Zerah and to the border of Abel Mahola near Tabbath. Then Gideon sent for the warriors of Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh who joined in chasing the army of Midian. Gideon also sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down to attack the Midianites. Cut them off at the shallow crossing the Jordan River at Beth Barah." So all the men of Ephraim did as they were told. They captured Oreb and Zeb, the 2 Midianite commanders, killing Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. And they continued to chase the Midianites. Afterward, the Israelites brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan River. So if you're just jumping in, we're using the New Living Translation. If you want to know why we're asking these questions, there are links at the bottom. And we are just getting to Judges chapter 8. Of course, when the church is unfaithful, the Lord is raising up these judges to sort them out. It's been upped, Marcus, to the Ferrari fund. Judges chapter 8. Gideon kills Zebah and Zalmunna. Then the people of Ephraim asked Gideon, "Why have you treated us this way? Why didn't you send for us when you first went out to fight the Midianites?" And they argue heatedly with Gideon. But Gideon replied, "What have I accomplished compared to you? Aren't even the leftover grapes of Ephraim's harvest better than the entire crop of my little clan of Abiezer? God gave you victory over Oreb and Zeb, the commanders of the Midianite army. What have I accomplished compared to that?" When the men of Ephraim heard Gideon's answer, their anger subsided. Apple for the teacher, nice from Chris Henry. I'm not complaining. Verse 4. Gideon then crossed the Jordan River with his 300 men, and though exhausted, they continued to chase the enemy. When they reached Succoth, Gideon asked the leaders of the town, "Please give my warriors some food. They are very tired. I am chasing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian." But the officials of Succoth replied, "Catch Zebah and Zalmunna first, and then we will feed your army." So Gideon said, "After the Lord gives me victory over Zebah and Zalmunna, I will return and tear your flesh with the thorns and briars from the wilderness." From there, Gideon went up to Peniel and asked again for food, but he got the same answer. So he sent to the people of Peniel to the people of Peniel, "After I return in victory, I will tear down this tower." By this time, Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with about 15,000 warriors, all that remained of the allied armies of the east, for 120,000 had already been killed. Gideon circled by the caravan route east of Nobah and Jogbihah, taking the Midianite army by surprise. Zebah and Zalmunna, the two Midianite kings, fled, but Gideon chased them down and captured all their warriors. After this, Gideon returned from the battle by the way of Heres Pass. There he captured a young man from Succoth and demanded that he write down the names of all the 70 officials and elders in the town. Gideon then returned to Succoth and said to the leaders, "Here are Zebah and Zalmunna. When we were here before, you taunted me, saying, 'Catch Zebah and Zalmunna first, and then we will feed your exhausted army.'" Then Gideon took the elders of the town and taught them a lesson, punishing them with thorns and briars from the wilderness. He also tore down the tower of Peniel and killed all the men in the town. Then Gideon asked Zebah and Zalmunna, "The men you killed at Tabor, what were they like?" "Like you," they replied. "They all had the look of a king's son." "They were my brothers, the sons of my own mother," Gideon exclaimed. "As surely as the Lord lives, I wouldn't kill you if you hadn't had killed them." Turning to Jether, his oldest son, he said, "Kill them." But Jether did not draw his sword, for he was only a boy and was afraid. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said to Gideon, "Be a man, kill us yourself." So Gideon killed them both and took the royal ornaments from the necks of their camels. Big stuff there. Verse 22. Then the Israelites said to Gideon, "Be our ruler. You and your son and your grandson will be our rulers, for you have rescued us from Midian." But Gideon replied, "I will not rule over you, nor will my son. The Lord will rule over you." What an answer! That's what every church leader should say ever. Church is a monarchy. However, I do have one request, that each of you give me an earring from the plunder you collected from your fallen enemies. The enemies being Ishmaelites all wore gold earrings. "Gladly," they replied. They spread out a cloak, and each one threw in a gold earring he had gathered from the plunder. The weight of the gold earrings was 43 pounds, not including the royal ornaments and pendants, the purple clothing worn by the kings or Midian, or the chains around the necks of the camels. Bling. Gideon made a sacred ephod from the gold and put it in Ophrah, his hometown. But soon all the Israelites prostituted themselves by worshipping it, and it became a trap for Gideon and his family. That is the story of how the people of Israel defeated Midian, which never recovered. Throughout the rest of Gideon's lifetime, about 40 years, there was peace in the land. Then Gideon, son of Joash, returned home. He had 70 sons born to him, for he had many wives. For he also had a concubine in Shechem, who gave birth to a son, whom he named Abimelech. Gideon died when he was very old, and he was buried in the grave of his father Joash at Ophrah, in the land of the clan of Abiezer. As soon as Gideon died, the Israelites prostituted themselves by worshipping the images of Baal, making Baal-berith their god. They forgot the Lord their God, who had rescued them from all their enemies surrounding them, nor did they show any loyalty to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, despite all the good he had done for Israel. North Star, I mean difficult things and topics. Just reread my comment above. Yeah, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, I'd always struck there that Gideon mounted something wealthy in his house, and it was a trap for others, him and his family. It's a good point there for church to see if we do have any idols that perhaps need to go. I knew a Christian once when he was converted, when he became a Christian. He got rid of all his music CDs, his like secular music CDs, because it was like a god to him. So he had to go for a period of years where he just had no secular music CDs, because he would fall back into just being obsessed with it, living for it. But as the years went on, he was able then to reintroduce it into his life in a balanced way, where he could thank God for music. And Israel, the church, are going up and down again here. That's the story, isn't it? Judges chapter 9. Abimelech rules over Shechem. One day, Gideon's son Abimelech went to Shechem to visit his uncles, his mother's brothers. He said to them and to the rest of his mother's family, "Ask the leading citizens of Shechem whether they want to be ruled by all 70 of Gideon's sons or by one man. And remember that I am your own flesh and blood." So Abimelech's uncles gave his message to all the citizens of Shechem on his behalf. And after listening to this proposal, the people of Shechem decided in favor of Abimelech because he was their relative. They gave him 70 silver coins from the temple of Baal-berith, which he used to hire some reckless troublemakers who agreed to follow him. Not a great start, is it? Whereas they should have said, yeah, we'll have one person rule over us. He went to his father's home in Ophrah, and there, on one stone, they killed all 70 of his half-brothers, the sons of Gideon. But the youngest brother, Jotham, escaped and hid. Then all the leading citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo called a meeting under the oak beside the pillar at Shechem and made Abimelech their king. Jotham's parable, verse 7. When Jotham heard about this, he climbed to the top of Mount Gerizim and shouted, "Listen to me, citizens of Shechem. Listen to me if you want God to listen to you. Once upon a time, the trees decided to choose a king. For they said to the olive tree, 'Be our king.' But the olive tree refused, saying, 'Should I quit producing the olive oil that blesses both God and people, just to wave back and forth over the trees?' Then they said to the fig tree, 'Be our king.' But the fig tree also refused, saying, 'Should I quit producing my sweet fruit just to wave back and forth over the trees?' Then they said to the grapevine, 'You be our king.' But the grapevine also refused, saying, 'Should I quit producing the wine that cheers both God and people, just to wave back and forth over these trees?' Then all the trees finally turned to the thorn bush and said, 'Come, you be our king.' And the thorn bush replied to the trees, 'If you truly want to make me your king, come and take shelter in my shade. If not, let fire come out from me and devour the cedars of Lebanon.' Jotham continued, 'Now make sure you have acted honorably and in good faith by making Abimelech your king, and that you have done right by Gideon and all of his descendants.'" North Star. Wow, the symbolism, isn't it? "Have you treated him with the honor he deserves for all he accomplished? For he fought for you and risked his life when he rescued you from the Midianites. But today you have revolted against my father and his descendants, killing his 70 sons on one stone. And you have chosen his slave woman's son, Abimelech, to be your king just because he is your relative. If you have acted honorably and in good faith toward Gideon and his descendants today, then you may find joy in Abimelech, and may he find joy in you. But if you have not acted in good faith, then may fire come out from Abimelech and devour the leading citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo, and may fire come out from the citizens of Shechem and Beth Milo and devour Abimelech." Then Jotham escaped and lived in Beer because he was afraid of his brother Abimelech. Interesting question. When we ask people to be leaders in church, what is the criteria we choose? It is because they're our mates or we're related to them. Because often in church history, the people used of God to lead churches are really not the most popular or charismatic or affable. Not people that the world would necessarily choose as a leader. Makes you think. Shechem rebels against Abimelech. After Abimelech had ruled over Israel for 3 years, God sent a spirit that stirred up trouble between Abimelech and the leading citizens of Shechem, and they revolted. So interesting that the Lord sends spirits sometimes that can cause trouble. God was punishing Abimelech for murdering Gideon's 70 sons, and the citizens of Shechem for supporting him in this treachery of murdering his brothers. The citizens of Shechem set an ambush for Abimelech on the hilltops and robbed everyone who passed that way. But someone warned Abimelech about their plot. One day, Gaal, son of Ebed, moved to Shechem with his brothers and gained the confidence of the leading citizens of Shechem. During the annual harvest festival at Shechem, held in the temple of the local god, the wine flowed freely and everybody began cursing Abimelech. It's not a great atmosphere going on, and it's not in great places either, is it? Who is Abimelech? Gaal shouted. He is not a true son of Shechem. So why should we be his servants? He's merely the son of Gideon. And this Zebul is merely his deputy. Serve the true sons of Hamor, the founder of Shechem. Why should we serve Abimelech? If I were in charge here, I would get rid of Abimelech. I would say to him, get some soldiers and come out and fight. Classic pub brawl. But when Zebul, the leader of the city, heard what Gaal was saying, he was furious. He sent messages to Abimelech in Arumah telling him, Gaal, son of Ebed, and his brothers have come to live in Shechem, and now they are inciting the city to rebel against you. Come by night with an army and hide out in the fields. In the morning, as soon as it is daylight, attack the city. When Gaal and those who are with him come against you, you can do with them as you wish. So Abimelech and all his men went by night and split into 4 groups, stationing themselves around Shechem. Gaal was standing at the city gates when Abimelech and his army came out of hiding. When Gaal saw them, he said to Zebul, "Look, there are people coming down from the hilltops." Zebul replied, "It's just the shadows on the hills that look like men." But again, Gaal said, "No, people are coming down from the hills. And another group is coming down the road past the Diviner's Oak." Then Zebul turned on him and said, "Now, where is that big mouth of yours? Wasn't it you that said, 'Who is Abimelech, and why should we be his servants?' The men you mocked are right outside the city. Go out and fight them." So Gaal led the leading citizens of Shechem into battle against Abimelech. But Abimelech chased him, and many of Shechem's men were wounded and fell along the road as they retreated to the city gate. Abimelech returned to Arumah, and Zebul drove Gaal and his brothers out of Shechem. The next day, the people of Shechem went out into the fields to battle. When Abimelech heard about it, he divided his men into 3 groups and set an ambush in the fields. When Abimelech saw the people coming out of the city, he and his men jumped up from their hiding places and attacked them. Abimelech and his group stormed the city gate to keep the men of Shechem from getting back in, while Abimelech's other 2 groups cut them down in the fields. The battle went on all day before Abimelech finally captured the city. He killed the people, leveled the city, and scattered salt all over the ground. There's that salt symbolism again. There is no salt in the sea of the new heavens and the new earth. All judgment and wrath has been taken out. The tragedy here is, it wasn't too long ago that they were swearing to follow the Lord and enjoy the land that they'd have inherited in peace. And now look at them as they've turned back to demonic gods. These are our church fathers, just balloon heads like us. When the leading citizens who lived in the Tower of Shechem heard what had happened, they ran and hid in the temple of Baal-berith. Someone reported to Abimelech that the citizens had gathered in the temple, so he led his forces to Mount Zalmon. He took an axe and chopped some branches from a tree, then put them on his shoulder. "Quick, do as I have done," he told his men. So each of them cut down some branches, following Abimelech's example. They piled the branches against the walls of the temple and set them on fire. So all the people who had lived in the Tower of Shechem died, about 1,000 men and women. Then Abimelech attacked the town of Thebes and captured it. But there was a strong tower inside the town, and all the men and women, the entire population, fled to it. They barricaded themselves in and climbed up the roof of the tower. Abimelech followed them to attack the tower, but as he prepared to set fire to the entrance, a woman on the roof dropped a millstone that landed on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. He quickly said to his younger armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and kill me. Don't let it be that a woman killed Abimelech." So the young man ran him through with his sword, and he died. When Abimelech's men saw that he was dead, they disbanded and returned to their homes. In this way, God punished Abimelech for the evil he had done against his father by murdering his 70 brothers. God also punished the men of Shechem for all their evil. So the curse of Jotham, son of Gideon, was fulfilled. Women get a bad press, with balloon heads, with misogynistic balloon heads, but there are women who have been leading the church in our readings, haven't they? And they've been absolute legends. And we don't have to discuss how much of a anti-culture, counterculture symbol Jesus was in that respect, teaching the women and sitting with them, and the apostles being taught by them and all sorts. It is the halfway mark. Please take 30 seconds. As we approach Judges chapter 10. Bible Hour merch is available. $17.99. That was a joke. Is Jotham still living in Beer? It doesn't seem to say what happened to him. Do you mean, is he still living there now? Or did he go back to Beer then? Let's see if he crops up again. Yeah, let's see what happens if he gets a sneaky little mention in a bit. Incidentally, the Batstone family tree in the 17th century hailed from Beer in Devon. Judges chapter 10. Tola becomes Israel's judge. After Abimelech died, Tola, son of Puah, son of Dodo, he's not dead, was the next person to rescue Israel. He was from the tribe of Issachar, but lived in the town of Shamir in the hill country, of Ephraim. He judged Israel for 23 years. When he died, he was buried in Shamir. Jair becomes Israel's judge. After Tola died, Jair from Gilead judged Israel for 22 years. His 30 sons rode around on 30 donkeys, and they owned 30 towns in the land of Gilead, which are still called the towns of Jair. When Jair died, he was buried in Camon. The Ammonites oppress Israel. Again, the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. They served the images of Baal and Ashtoreth, and the gods of Aram, Sidon, Moab, Ammon, and Philistia. They abandoned the Lord and no longer served him at all. Does our church? So the Lord burned with anger against Israel, and he turned them over to the Philistines and the Ammonites. who began to oppress them that year. For 18 years, they oppressed all the Israelites east of the Jordan River in the land of the Amorites, that is, in Gilead. The Ammonites also crossed to the west side of the Jordan and attacked Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. The Israelites were in great distress. Obviously, false gods lead to complete ruin. Finally, they cried out to the Lord for help, saying, "We have sinned against you because we've abandoned you as our God and have served the images of Baal." The Lord replied, "Did I not rescue you from the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Sidonians, the Amalekites, and the Maonites? When they oppressed you, you cried out to me for help, and I rescued you. Yet you have abandoned me and served other gods, so I will not rescue you anymore. Go and cry out to the gods you have chosen. Let them rescue you in your hour of distress." But the Israelites pleaded with the Lord and said, "We have sinned. Punish us if you see fit. Only rescue us today from our enemies." Then the Israelites put aside their foreign gods and served the Lord, and he was grieved by their misery. At the time, the armies of Ammon gathered for war and were camped in Gilead, and the people of Israel assembled and camped at Mizpah. The leaders of Gilead said to each other, "Whoever attacks the Ammonites first will become ruler over all the people of Gilead." Okay. Interesting there, isn't it? That the Lord was grieved by what the church is going through. We have a human God, literally. Okay, now I get spicy. And in my experience of this chapter, Judges 11, and knowing the little bit I do of the Hebrew in parts of this chapter, very few English translations get this passage right. And chat will probably be absolutely filled with questions at the end of Judges 11, but I'm just going to say the English is often rubbish, and even good commentators often don't get this right. But there are people who hit the nail on the head. Anyway, with that introduction, that teaser, Jephthah becomes Israel's judge. Now, Jephthah of Gilead was a great warrior. He was the son of Gilead, but his mother was a prostitute. Gilead's wife also had several sons, and when these half-brothers grew up, they chased Jephthah off the land. "You will not get any of our father's inheritance," they said, "for you are the son of a prostitute." So Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Soon he and a band of worthless rebels followed him. At about this time, the Ammonites began their war against Israel. When the Ammonites attacked, the elders of Gilead sent for Jephthah in the land of Tob. The elders said, "Come and be our commander. Help us fight the Ammonites." But Jephthah said to them, "Aren't you the ones who hated me and drove me from my father's house? Why do you come to me now when you're in trouble?" "Because we need you," the elders replied. "If you lead us in battle against the Ammonites, we will make you ruler over all the people of Gilead." Jephthah said to the elders, "Let me get this straight. If I come with you, and if the Lord gives me victory over the Ammonites, will you really make me ruler over all the people?" "The Lord is our witness," the elders replied. "We promise to do whatever you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him their ruler and commander of the army. At Mizpah, in the presence of the Lord, Jephthah repeated what he had said to the elders. Then Jephthah sent messages to the king of Ammon, saying, "Why have you come out to fight against my land?" The king of Ammon answered Jephthah's messengers, "When the Israelites came out of Egypt, they stole my land from the Arnon River to the Jabbok River and all the way to the Jordan. Now then, give back the land peaceably." Jephthah sent his message back to the Ammonite king. This is what Jephthah says: "Israel did not steal any land from Moab or Ammon. When the people of Israel arrived at Kadesh on their journey from Egypt after crossing the Red Sea, they sent messengers to the king of Edom asking for permission to pass through his land." Bible Hour remembers that one. But their request was denied. Then they asked the king of Moab for similar permission, but he wouldn't let them pass through either. So the people of Israel stayed in Kadesh. Finally, they went around Edom and Moab through the wilderness. They traveled along Moab's eastern border and camped on the other side of the Arnon River. But they never once crossed the Arnon River into Moab, for the Arnon was the border of Moab. Then Israel sent messengers to King Sihon of the Amorites, who ruled from Heshbon, asking for permission to cross through his land to get their destination. But King Sihon didn't trust Israel to pass through his land. Instead, he mobilized his army at Jahaz and attacked them. But the Lord, the God of Israel, gave his people victory over Sihon. So Israel took control of all the land of the Amorites who lived in that region, from the Arnon River to the Jabbok River and from the eastern wilderness of the Jordan. Good thing about the Bible is you don't have to reread passages very often, because it just repeats all the key bits for us, doesn't it? So you see, it was the Lord, the God of Israel, who took away the land from the Ammonites and gave it to Israel. Why then should we give it back to you? You keep whatever God Chemosh gives you, whatever your God Chemosh gives you, and we will keep whatever the Lord our God gives us. Chemosh is a nasty one, and I'm pretty sure it's Chemosh that King Solomon ends up falling in love with and botching his whole life. Are you any better than Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he try to make a case against Israel for disputed land? Did he go to war against them? Israel has been living here for 300 years, inhabiting Heshbon and its surrounding settlements, all the way to Aroer and its settlements, and in all the towns along the Arnon River. Why have you made no effort to recover it before now? Therefore, I have not sinned against you. Rather, you have wronged me by attacking me. Let the Lord, who is judge, decide today which of us is right, Israel or Ammon. But the king of Ammon paid no attention to Jephthah's message. Not a good idea not to listen to the Lord as judge. Jephthah's vow. At that time, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he went throughout the land of Gilead and Manasseh, including Mizpah in Gilead, and from there he led an army against the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord. He said, "If you give me victory over the Ammonites, I will give to the Lord whatever comes out of my house to meet me when I return in triumph. I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering." So Jephthah led his army against the Ammonites, and the Lord gave him victory. He crushed the Ammonites, devastating about 20 towns from Aroer to an area near Minnith and as far away as Abel Keramim. In this way, Israel defeated the Ammonites. When Jephthah returned home to Mizpah, his daughter came out to meet him, playing on a tambourine and dancing for joy. She was his one and only child. He had no other sons or daughters. When he saw her, he tore his clothes in anguish. "Oh, my daughter," he cried out, "you have completely destroyed me. You've brought disaster on me, for I have made a vow to the Lord and I cannot take it back." And she said, "Father, if you have made a vow to the Lord, you must do to me whatever you have vowed, for the Lord has given you a great victory over your enemies, the Ammonites. But first, let me do this one thing. Let me go up and roam the hills and weep with my friends for 2 months, because I will die a virgin." "You may go," Jephthah said. And he sent her away for 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never have children. When she returned home, her father kept the vow he had made, and she died a virgin. So it has become a custom in Israel for young Israelite women to go away for 4 days each year to lament the fate of Jephthah's daughter. What a chapter. Profound chapter in the life of church. And a chapter that commentators and theologians have been trying to break apart and explain for millennia. I actually think that's the first time I've read it in the New Living Translation, and I think they got it wrong. But I might be wrong. Maybe we'll do a bit about Jephthah's daughter tomorrow on Facebook or something. We are in the third. Please take a little break. Take 60 seconds. Settle in. Will I just sort attention? Oh. Get a drink, get some food, a burger, bag of crisps, an apple. What do you think they got wrong? I will defer that one, Diane, because it is a spicy meatball. It's a spicy meatball, so I think we'll have a little look into it tomorrow as a group during the day. Tomorrow. Judges 12. Ephraim fights with Jephthah. Then the people of Ephraim mobilized an army and crossed over the Jordan River to Zaphon. They sent this message to Jephthah. "I always thought she served at Shiloh." They sent this message to Jephthah. "Why didn't you call for us to help you fight against the Ammonites? We are going to burn down your house with you in it." Jephthah replied, "I summoned you at the beginning of this dispute, but you refused to come. You failed to help us in our struggle against Ammon. So when I realized you weren't coming, I risked my life and went to battle without you, and the Lord gave me victory over the Ammonites. So why have you now come to fight me?" The people of Ephraim responded, "You men of Gilead are nothing more than fugitives from Ephraim and Manasseh." So Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and attacked the men of Ephraim and defeated them. Jephthah captured the shallow crossings of the Jordan River, and whenever the fugitive from Ephraim tried to go back across, Whenever a fugitive, not the fugitive, Harrison Ford, a fugitive from Ephraim tried to go back across, the men of Gilead would challenge him. Are you a member of the tribe of Ephraim? They would ask. If the man said, no, I'm not, they would tell him to say Shibboleth. If he was from Ephraim, he would say Shibboleth, because people from Ephraim cannot pronounce the word correctly. Then they would take them and kill them at the shallow crossings of the Jordan. In all, 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. I mean, this is disaster, isn't it? This book is spiraling out of control. Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years. When he died, he was buried in one of the towns of Gilead. Ibzan becomes Israel's judge. After Jephthah died, Ibzan from Bethlehem judged Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He sent his daughters to marry men outside his clan, and he brought in 30 young women from outside his clan to marry his sons. Ibzan judged Israel for 7 years. When he died, he was buried at Bethlehem. Elon becomes Israel's judge. After Ibzan died, Elon from the tribe of Zebulun judged Israel for 10 years. When he died, he was buried at Aijalon in Zebulun. Abdon becomes Israel's judge. After Elon died, Abdon, son of Hillel from Pirathon, judged Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons who rode on 70 donkeys. He judged Israel for 8 years. When he died, he was buried at Pirathon and Ephraim in the hill country of the Amalekites. Here comes a biggie. Judges chapter 13. The birth of Samson. Again, the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. It'd be interesting if someone could count how many times that sentence comes up in the book of Judges alone. So the Lord handed them over to the Philistines, who oppressed them for 40 years. In those days, a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan lived in the town of Zorah. His wife was unable to become pregnant, and they had no children. This civil war stuff, by the way, people in chat, how many churches do you know or have been a part of that have split and had basically civil war? And the only reason they didn't use weapons is because it's not custom at the moment, or you're not really allowed to. I mean, we can be as tragic as the book of Judges. We test the patience of Jesus as much as the ancient church. The worst bit about modern splits it's not even over the worthy stuff that these lots split over, like the name of the Lord or land, new heavens and earth. We split over stupid things like, why has Owen got spiky hair and a stripy jumper? He can't be a pastor. Let's all split. It's that sort of stuff, isn't it? Although it's a valid point. Verse 2. In those days, a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan lived in the town of Zorah. His wife was unable to become pregnant, and they had no children. The angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and said, even though you have been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. So be careful. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic nor any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden fruit. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut. For he will be dedicated to God as a Nazarite from birth. He will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. Brings back happy memories, Bible Hour, the Nazarite vow, doesn't it? The Moses glory days. The woman ran and told her husband, a man of God appeared to me. He looked like one of God's angels, terrifying to see. I didn't ask where he was from, and he didn't tell me his name, but he told me, "You will become pregnant and give birth to a son. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, nor eat any forbidden food, for your son will be dedicated to God as a Nazarite from the moment of his birth until the day of his death." Then Manoah prayed to the Lord, saying, "Lord, please let the man of God come back to us again and give us more instructions about this son who is to be born." God answered Manoah's prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife as she was sitting in the field. But her husband Manoah was not with her. So she quickly ran and told her husband, "The man who appeared to me the other day, he is here again." Manoah ran back with his wife and asked, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife the other day?" "Yes," he replied, "I am." So Manoah asked him, "When your words come true, what kind of rules should govern the boy's life and work?" The angel of the Lord replied, "Be sure your wife follows the instructions I gave her. She must not eat grapes or raisins, drink wine or any other alcoholic drink, or eat any forbidden food." Then Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, "Please stay here until we can prepare a young goat for you to eat." "I will stay," the angel of the Lord replied, "but I will not eat anything. However, you may prepare a burnt offering as a sacrifice to the Lord." Manoah didn't realize it was the angel of the Lord. I know non-nutty people who I trust who will claim that they too have seen angels in human form. It's an interesting thing. You know, the type of person that sees like angels and demons over every single rock and they sort of need to put the LSD down a bit. Not those type of people. Genuine, steady, straightforward Christian people I know have encountered angels like this in modern day. It's a fascinating area of Christianity and one that's dreadfully undertaught. "Why do you ask my name?" the angel of the Lord replied. "It is too wonderful for you to understand." That's no ordinary angel, is it? Then Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering and offered it on a rock as a sacrifice to the Lord. And as Manoah and his wife watched, the Lord did an amazing thing. As the flames from the altar shot up towards the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in the fire. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell to their faces to the ground with their. The angel did not appear again to Manoah and his wife. Manoah finally realized it was the angel of the Lord, and he said to his wife, "We will certainly die, for we have seen God." Yes! Park End admin, I know it's late in your shift and all, but could you possibly put the King James version of verse 18 down? Because King James, it's nice and robust in its poetry sometimes, and I wonder how it captures verse 18. But that is one of the best ever. "Why do you ask my name? It is too wonderful for you to understand." We have seen God. Yes! For his wife said, "If the Lord were going to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our burnt offering and grain offering. He wouldn't have appeared to us and told us this wonderful thing and done these miracles." When her son was born, she named him Samson. And the Lord blessed him as he grew up. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he lived in Mahanadan, which is located between the towns of Zorah and Eshtal. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, "Why askest thou thus after my name, seeing it is a secret?" Oh. Is there like a 18 Part B. That pesky Textus Receptus, or... Oh, okay, while you're digging that one out, Judges chapter 14, Samson's riddle. A possible trivia question from Owen at the end. One day when Samson was in Timnah, one of the Philistine women caught his eye. When he returned home, he told his father and mother, "A young Philistine woman in Timnah caught my eye. I want to marry her. Get her for me." His father and mother objected. "Isn't there even one woman in our tribe or among all the Israelites you could marry?" they asked. "Why must you go to the pagan Philistines to find a wife?" It's a good question. But Samson told his father, "Get her for me. She looks good to me." His father and mother didn't realize the Lord was at work in this, creating an opportunity to work against the Philistines who ruled over Israel at that time. As Samson and his parents were going down to Timnah, a young lion suddenly attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timnah. Verse 18. In the NIV, "Why do you ask my name? It is beyond understanding." Okay, all right, that's not as good. Verse 6. At the moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the... King James Version, verse 18. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, "Why askest thou after my name? It is a secret." That's verse 18, not verse 8. You got it right, Park-In admin, the first time. It's just those pesky Masoretes didn't put the second bit in, probably because there's different manuscripts and all that stuff, whatever. Right, let's focus now for 3 minutes. Let's go from verse 5, because it's all gone to pot here. As Samson and his parents were going down to Timnah, a young lion suddenly attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timnah. At that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. He did it as easily as if it were a young goat. But he didn't tell his father or mother about it. When Samson arrived in Timnah, he talked with the woman and was very pleased with her. Later, when he returned to Timnah for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion, and he found that a swarm of bees had made some honey in the carcass. He scooped some of the honey into his hands and ate it along the way. He also gave some to his father and mother, and they ate it. But he didn't tell them he had taken the honey from the carcass of a lion. As his father was making final arrangements for the marriage, Samson threw a party at Timnah, as was the custom for elite young men. When the bride's parents saw him, they selected 30 young men from the town to be his companions. Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of the celebration, I will give you 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing." "All right," he said. "Let's hear your riddle." So he said, "Out of the one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." 3 days later, they were still trying to figure it out. It is 10 o'clock. And on that note, Bible Hour, you have the next 23.59 hours to figure out that riddle if you don't know it. And to answer this question, what modern day kitchen condimenty apparatus thingy-mabobby in my pantry has that very riddle written on it? Answers on a postcard. Lots today learned about Jesus, and an awful lot learned about church and what we're capable of. What we're capable of when the Lord isn't our judge and king. Gelfin 6969. Tonight I cannot finish it, and I'll tell you why. Because I had a bad night last night, and I gotta go to sleep. And I mean sleep. So I don't have the extra 6.5 minutes to spare. But tomorrow, God willing, it'll be day 32 in the Bible Hour. And also during the day, I will possibly post some stuff to get us thinking about Jephthah and his daughter and what was all that about. The rest of you, enjoy your evening. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. Rachel Freeman, golden syrup. She has got it. Right on the cusp. She's jumped in there. And now we owe her 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. Lyles, spot on. Until tomorrow.